She cheated and left me for my best friend. She had no idea I was secretly making $500, $0 a year. Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin the video, using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I remember the moment vividly. Lisa decided to end our marriage and left me for her closest friend, completely oblivious to the fact that I'd been quietly earning $500,000 a year. Olivia, or Lisa as I used to call her, was sitting at the kitchen table, casually scrolling through her phone as if she had no worries in the world. I had just gotten home from work, ready to toss my bag down and relax, when she suddenly looked up and said in the coldest tone, "Marcus, I want a divorce." No warning, no gentle preamble, just a blunt statement, delivered as casually as if she was commenting on the weather. I froze for a second, trying to process if I'd heard her right. "Excuse me," I managed to ask, my voice surprisingly steady despite the turmoil inside me. She repeated herself without a hint of remorse, tone implying I was just slow on the uptake. Instead of feeling anger or heartbreak, I was stunned by her audacity. "Divorce," she repeated, crossing her arms as if this was just a matter of fact after everything we'd been through. That word hit me hardest because I couldn't accept the reasoning behind it. She went on saying she couldn't keep living like this, that she needed someone who actually worked and contributed. This wasn't the life she had signed up for. I blinked, trying to hide my shock. I wanted to laugh, to tell her she was mistaken, but I kept my composure. For years, I had built my career from scratch, earning a six-figure salary and setting us up for a future most people only dream of. But Olivia, she never asked about my job, never showed even the slightest curiosity about how I made my money. I guess she thought I was just coasting, barely scraping by. I leaned against the counter, watching her confidently. She looked so sure of herself, convinced she was making the right call. "So," I said simply, "all right," placing my bag on the floor. She tilted her head, surprised. "All right," she echoed, almost as if to double-check. "Yeah, Olivia, if you want a divorce, I won't stop you," I said softly. For a moment I saw a flicker of doubt cross her face, but she quickly masked it with her usual smug smile. "Good," she said coldly. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. You'll need to be out of the house by the end of the month." The nerve of her was almost laughable, but I chose not to argue. If she wanted me gone, I'd leave, at least for now. "Fair enough," I replied as I turned to head upstairs. I could feel her eyes on me, waiting, probably expecting me to explode or plead. I gave her nothing. In our bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, letting the reality sink in. This wasn't just about divorce, it was about power. Olivia wanted to control everything, paint me as the failure in our relationship, maybe even guilt me into fighting for her. But she didn't know me as well as she thought. In the days that followed, her passive-aggressive behavior was relentless. She suddenly had an opinion on everything: how I folded laundry, how I spent my evenings, even how I brewed my coffee. It was like she was trying to justify her decision by turning me into the villain. And then there was Brian, her so-called best friend. At first, I didn't think much of how often she mentioned him. "Brian said this," or "Brian suggested that." But it quickly became clear he was more than just a friend. I refused to confront her, wasn't ready to reveal my hand. I let her believe she was still in control, that I was just some clueless husband unaware of her betrayal. One evening, I packed a bag with a few essentials. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, a smile on her face that I knew was meant to be condescending. "So, have you figured out where you're going to stay?" she sneered. I zipped up my bag and faced her calmly. "Don't worry about me, Olivia. I'll be just fine." Almost surprised by my composure, she huffed and said, "Good, because Brian and I are planning a dinner party here next weekend. It'd be awkward if you still stuck around, with my best friend and all." The audacity was almost impressive. I shouldered my bag. "Don't worry," I said with a small smile, "I'll be long gone before then." As I passed her, I caught her smug smile. She thought she'd won, that I was retreating in defeat. But what she didn't realize was she had just handed me the match to light the fuse. If she wanted to burn everything down, I was going to let her. And then I'd watch as the flames devoured her and Brian. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't shouting or fighting. It's silence, patience, letting the other person dig their own grave while you quietly prepare to bury them. And trust me, I was just getting started. Betrayal is insidious. It sneaks in quietly, disguised in casual chats and harmless gestures, until one day you wake up and realize that the foundation of everything you thought was solid has been chipped away. Olivia's request for a divorce was the first crack in that foundation. What followed was her steady unraveling, revealing the true nature of her and Brian, my so-called best friend. I should have seen it coming, but hindsight's a bitch. At first, it was subtle. Olivia started mentioning Brian's name more often. Brian said this. Brian suggested that. Over dinner, I nodded along, thinking it was innocent since he was a close friend to both of us. But soon enough, his name slipped into our conversations more frequently, with a warmth that made my stomach turn. The first real red flag appeared on a Saturday afternoon. Olivia came back from lunch with Brian, her cheeks flushed, laughing like she hadn't in years. When I asked what was so funny, she waved me off dismissively. "Oh, it's just something Brian said," she said. "You wouldn't get it." That's when I started noticing. The sly smiles while she typed texts, quickly locking her phone. The way she dressed up more and more whenever she had plans with Brian. The excuses, "we're just friends," or "you're overthinking it." Overthinking, that's always the word guilty people use to shift blame, but I didn't confront her. What would be the point? She'd just deny it, spin some story to paint me as the paranoid husband. So I played along, pretending I didn't notice the signs. Yet the real blow came one evening when Brian showed up unexpectedly at my house, uninvited. I was packing a few essentials, as Olivia had asked. When I opened the door, there he was, grinning as if we were old pals. "Marcus, my man," he said, acting like we'd always been best friends. I stared at him, teeth clenched, patience wearing thin. "What do you want, Brian?" I managed to ask. He leaned casually against the frame, flashing that grin. "Just checking in. Olivia said you're moving out, and I thought I'd see if you needed any help." Help? From the guy who'd been sleeping with my wife behind my back. The audacity was almost impressive. "I've got it handled," I replied curtly, turning back to my packing. He lingered, watching me closely, and I saw the wheels turning in his head. He wasn't just here to check in. He was here to rub it in, to stake his claim. "Listen," he said, voice all sincerity. "I know this is tough, but things happen. Life's unpredictable." I looked him in the eyes, took a slow step closer. "Yeah, Brian, things do happen. Sometimes they come back to bite you." That made him falter. His confident smirk wavered, and then he started to look uncertain. I didn't wait for him to recover. I turned back to my suitcase, effectively dismissing him. He tried to salvage some dignity, retreating toward the door. "Marcus, you've always been a cool guy," he said awkwardly. "No hard feelings, right?" I stayed silent. Silence is a powerful thing, especially when someone's desperate for a reaction. He left without another word, and as I watched his car disappear down the street, I exhaled slowly, realizing I'd been holding my breath. That night, lying in the bed that would soon no longer be mine, I replayed everything from the past few months. The missed signals, the lies, the betrayal. I could have been angry, confront them both, demand answers, but what good would it do? They'd already written me off as irrelevant, just a footnote in their story. But they didn't realize I'd been paying attention all along, taking mental notes, planning my next move. If Olivia and Brian thought they could slip away into their new life without consequences, they were dead wrong. Betrayal isn't over when the truth comes out. That's when the real game begins. As far as I was concerned, this was a game I was fully prepared to win. Divorce, such a small word for something so messy. It sounds final, like a clean break, but when Olivia and I walked into that courtroom, I knew that wasn't her ending, it was her victory lap. She dressed to impress, wearing a tailored, sophisticated dress, confident, almost smug. And right behind her, lurking like a shadow, was Brian. Of course, he didn't come into the courtroom, but his presence, hidden in the background, spoke volumes. Olivia wasn't just divorcing me, she was flaunting her betrayal as if it were a badge of honor. "Marcus, let's keep this simple," she said coolly at the negotiation table. "I don't want this to be harder than it has to." Hearing that, I couldn't help but smile inwardly. She'd already made it difficult, stomping through years of marriage like an old rug she was eager to replace. "I won't make it harder," I said evenly, meeting her gaze. The lawyer outlined her terms: the house, some furniture, a slice of my savings. She probably thought I'd fight, maybe beg for a better deal, but I didn't flinch. I signed each document swiftly. Olivia blinked, confused. "You're okay with all this?" she asked, voice disbelieving. "Why not?" I responded casually. "It's just stuff." For a second I saw doubt flicker across her face, but she quickly masked it with that smug smile that said she'd won. What she didn't realize was that the house wasn't even mine. It was a rental under my name where I had worked when I first started freelancing years ago. The savings she thought she was taking was just a fraction of my wealth. Real money was tucked elsewhere in investments she had no idea about. Once the papers were signed and everything finalized, Olivia leaned back, feeling victorious. "Well, I'm glad we handled this like adults," she said, voice dripping with condescension. I simply nodded, biting back a laugh. A week later, I packed my belongings and moved out of the house she'd wanted so badly. I left her everything. Furniture, decorations, even those expensive kitchen gadgets she never used. It wasn't worth the trouble to take them. Let her have her spoils. Brian, of course, wasted no time moving in. I saw a neighbor's photo, Brian unloading boxes into the house, Olivia on the porch with that same smug look. They thought they'd built their perfect life together, unaware of the storm already gathering. What Olivia didn't know was I'd been gathering evidence of her affair with Brian for months before the divorce: photos, texts, even GPS data showing their frequent hotel lunches. I could have used that to blow up the divorce proceedings, but I chose not to. Why? Because dragging it out in court would only prolong the drama. I wanted something far more satisfying: karma, and I wanted front row seats when it came. In the weeks that followed, I settled into my new life. My career kept booming and my income continued to rise. Meanwhile, Olivia and Brian publicly paraded their relationship, posting pictures of dinners, vacations, all the stuff social media loves. But the cracks started to show. The dinners grew fewer, the vacations vanished. Their smiles looked forced. Slowly, the whispers started: Olivia's becoming less polished, her hair, her clothes, all cheaper alternatives. Brian, once the flashy showman, was recycling outfits, looking more stressed than ever. One day I got a call from a mutual friend. "Marcus," she whispered, "you won't believe this. Olivia and Brian are in deep trouble. They're behind on rent and the landlord's knocking on their door." I laughed quietly, knowing karma was catching up with them. References to their mounting bills, arguments, and Brian's job loss started to surface. He finally got laid off, and Olivia was left to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. No job, no savings, no connections, just a crumbling house and mounting debts. One night I saw her at the grocery store. Her cart was filled with cheap essentials. She looked up, saw me, and froze. "Marcus," she whispered, voice shaking. "Olivia," I answered neutrally. She tried to speak, but no words came. Instead, she looked defeated, not the confident woman who once demanded a divorce and flaunted her affair. "I hope you're doing well," I said, breaking the silence. She nodded hurriedly, eyes darting away. "You too," she muttered, pushing her cart away. As I watched her walk off, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and pity. She made her choices, and now she was paying for them. The life she fought so hard to build was crumbling, all because of her own actions. I didn't need to say or do anything. Life had already done the heavy lifting. Sometimes karma doesn't need a push. It just needs time. It's a quiet force that finds its way, turning their own schemes against them. I'd watched Olivia and Brian's so-called perfect world collapse from afar. The first signs appeared in whispers, then in public humiliations, missed bills, failed relationships. Their facade was cracking. Then I learned more. Olivia was barely keeping it together, and Brian, once proud and flashy, looked a decade older. One of my friends called. "Marcus," she said, grinning, "you won't believe what Brian's been up to, seeing someone else, apparently." Turns out, Olivia caught him texting a younger woman from his new job. I chuckled, knowing I wasn't the only one who'd seen it coming. The fallout was swift. Olivia confronted Brian publicly, furious, throwing her coffee in his face. That woman wasn't just a fling, she was someone he met at work, carefree and uninterested in settling down. Olivia demanded answers. Brian, as usual, blamed everyone else. Their arguments, loud and frequent, became town gossip. Eventually, Brian moved out, leaving Olivia desperate. She called me again, voice trembling with anger and heartbreak. "Marcus, you were right. He's a liar. I can't believe I trusted him." I listened, letting her vent. I could have offered sympathy, but that wasn't my style. Instead, I said, "You made your choice. You preferred Brian, thinking he was better. How's that working out for you?" Silence. She murmured she didn't need my lectures. That was fine. Her actions had consequences, she just didn't see them yet. She hung up, and I later found out Brian never came back. He moved in with someone new, who quickly realized he was just as unreliable. Olivia was left with her shattered life, no money, no support, and no one to turn to. Her friends drifted away, her family shut her out. The life she fought so hard to build was ashes. And me? I didn't lift a finger. Karma had done all the work. There's a certain satisfaction in knowing people like Olivia and Brian can't outrun their own choices. They think they're clever, manipulative, invincible, but life has a way of humbling even the most arrogant. While they tore each other apart, I thrived. Business boomed. My life was peaceful, my future brighter than ever. The best revenge is living well, they say. And for me, that's exactly what I was doing. The thing is, when you're betrayed and humiliated, you discover just how resilient you really are. My divorce wasn't an ending, it was a new beginning, a clean slate, hidden behind their flames. I promised myself I'd never let their treachery define me. Instead, I'd rise above it, not just for revenge, but for my peace. I upgraded to a sleek apartment downtown, towering floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furnishings, and a view that reminded me of how far I'd come. It was more than a home, it was a symbol of new beginnings. My career took off, more clients, more deals, earning over $500,000 annually. Opportunities kept coming in, from speaking gigs to investment deals. I was quietly winning, the kind of success Olivia hadn't even noticed. Old friends reconnected, new friends appreciated me for who I was, not what I could do for them. I started exploring life again, attending events, traveling, renewing old relationships. But the real change happened inside. I learned to value myself, to recognize my worth. Therapy helped. Talking to someone who understood, who could help me process the betrayal, was invaluable. My therapist told me, "Marcus, you're only responsible for how you respond. You're not responsible for their choices." Those words became my mantra. I also dove into my passions, writing, photography. My blog, a mix of personal stories and professional insights, grew faster than I expected. It became a testament to rebuilding from pain, turning hardship into progress. This became part of my victory lap. Meanwhile, the whispers about Olivia and Brian grew more frequent, debts mounting, arguments, a crumbling image. Soon, tales turned to truth. Olivia was nearly broke, living in a rundown apartment after her house was sold because she couldn't pay the bills. I heard about her in a store, pushing a modest cart, and she froze when she saw me. "Marcus," she whispered, voice shaky. "Olivia," I said neutrally. She opened her mouth to speak, but then closed it again. I saw her defeated, no sign of the confident woman who once flaunted her affair. "I hope you're doing okay," I said, turning away gently. She nodded hurriedly, eyes fixed on the ground. As I left the store, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and pity. She made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. Just as I'd suspected, life was rebalancing itself. One morning my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. I answered. "Marcus," came Olivia's trembling voice. "Olivia," I said calmly. "I need to talk," she said. I leaned back, unbothered. "About what?" Another pause. "Things with Brian and me have been tough. I was wondering if you could help, just a little loan to get by." I chuckled inwardly. She left me humiliated, flaunted her new life with Brian, and now she wanted money. I replied, "Sorry, I can't help. You'll figure it out." Her voice sharpened. "Marcus, just this once. It's not a big deal." I had nothing more to say. I hung up. A week later, I learned they'd been evicted. The landlord finally tossed them out after months of unpaid rent. They moved into a tiny, rundown apartment on the outskirts of town. A mutual friend told me, "You should see it, Marcus. Olivia's barely holding it together. Brian looks like he's aged 10 years." I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Their downfall was their own doing. Olivia's life of comfort was built on lies, and Brian's just a reflection of his own recklessness. Another surprise came when I ran into Olivia at the grocery store. She was pushing a modest cart filled with generic goods. When she saw me, she froze. "Marcus," she said, voice trembling. I kept my tone even. "Olivia." She hesitated, then quickly looked away. I nodded politely and walked on. As I did, a strange feeling washed over me, a strange mixture of satisfaction and pity. She made her choices, and now she was paying the price. The life she'd fought hard for was gone. Life didn't need to punish her, it already had. And all I had to do was watch. Sometimes karma doesn't need a push, it just takes its time. It quietly starts to chip away at their illusions until one day everything falls apart. And while they're busy covering up failures, I was busy building something better, more meaningful, more stable. My work flourished, my life grew peaceful. The best revenge, living well. And I was doing just that. Losing Olivia and Brian forced me to see my own strength. I discovered I could survive anything, come out better on the other side. My divorce wasn't an ending, it was my rebirth. They'd burned their bridges, and I was already building new ones, stronger, better, mine. After the divorce, I promised myself I'd never let their betrayal define who I am. I'd rise above it, not just for revenge, but for my own peace. I upgraded my home to a modern penthouse, a reflection of my new life. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist decor, a view that reminded me of how far I'd come. My career kept soaring, deals, opportunities, income above $500,000 and climbing. I wasn't just doing well. I was flourishing quietly out of the spotlight. Old friends reconnected. I found new ones who valued me for who I was, not what I had. I started exploring again. Events, travel, rediscovering joy. But most of all, I learned to value myself, to believe I was enough. Therapy helped me process all the pain and betrayal. My therapist told me, "You're only responsible for how you respond." Those words stuck. I also channeled my passions, writing, photography. My blog became a platform to share my journey of healing and growth. It grew beyond my expectations, connecting with others going through similar struggles. Whispers about Olivia and Brian's downward spiral became a cautionary tale. More debts, missed bills, arguments, the cracks widening. Eventually, their house was sold and they moved into a cramped apartment. I didn't gloat, though. That wasn't me. I just appreciated that their choices had caught up with them. One day, in a grocery line, I saw her, Olivia, humbled, pushing her modest cart. She looked up, saw me, and froze. The confident woman who demanded a divorce and flaunted her affair was gone. "I hope you're doing okay," I said softly. She nodded quickly, avoiding eye contact. I left her there feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and pity. She made her bed. Now she had to lie in it. Life doesn't always slam the door sometimes. Karma just opens the window, letting everything fall apart naturally. And I was content to watch it happen. Now I know sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting or fighting. It's simply living well, confidently, and letting the truth do the work. I thrived while they fell apart, and I realized their destruction was their own doing. I was free and they hadn't even noticed. Moving on was the real victory. My new life was brighter, bigger, better, everything they thought they could steal from me but never really could. As far as I'm concerned, this chapter with Olivia and Brian is closed. This is my story now, and I'm writing it with purpose.